Hi, Caesar again. Today we're going to go over how I'm adding the clay to the armature. This is one of the legs I've done so far. This is the left leg, and I'll go through the process how I did it. And this will be the right leg. So what do we have going here? The left and the right. Something like this here. And I'll go over how I used the full scale transparencies to help me more or less build it up and get the right proportions. At the same time, I'm actually also utilizing this, where is it? This resin study, and also referring to my monitor to more or less help me as far as getting the rough, the muscle structure where it belongs. And for this project, I will go ahead and probably just use this tool here. In fact, for probably 95% of the work, and it's a ball tip tool here. It looks like it's a 1/8, and this 1/8 got me to this point here. Later I will go ahead and use other tools to refine it more, and I'm also going to use my waxing carving pin just to create a hole within this section of it to actually allow my armature wire to go in there and fuse itself nicely together. And we'll get into that when I get to that point. What I'm going to be doing hopefully sometime next month is going out to either Norco or Merino Valley and measuring one of the stallions and getting the correct proportions and transferring those over to my piece here. Because in looking at this here, I'm just going by what I found so far on the internet and assume that those proportions are correct, and I've adjusted my armature to that. But I'm just going to verify that. Amy from the Southern California Friesian Club is working on setting up a meet time with one of the owners of one of these particular breeds here, the Friesians, and hopefully I'm able to go ahead and measure that horse, take pictures and videos, and I'll share them with you guys. But that's sometime next month. First thing I want to do is take the tip of this armature here, and I'm going to create a loop here at the tip and create a hole in here using that waxing pin to soften up everything, melt the clay within there. So I insert it. Once it solidifies, I have a nice secure fit in there. So let's do that first. Let's create a little loop here. And I'm creating a loop so the clay will get a better bond, will stick better to the clay in there, because if it was just a straight shot, chances of it slipping off are pretty good. So that's pretty good there. So next thing I want to do is take a measurement and see how much I actually need to remove from here. So right here. And I'm creating a few marks here. I want to know exactly where that hole needs to come in. So there, here's a good source here. Okay, I have it set at 227 Fahrenheit. Hopefully that's hot enough. and I want to come in at this angle. So I don't want to force it. I'll let the heat do the work for me, because if I force it, these are brass tips and chances are very good I will bend the tips and eventually they will snap. Now this is not the final thickness of the muscular or the leg. I will tweak it later once the whole piece is together and I take my measurements from the live horse. I will make adjustments. Let's see, how deep do I have to go? I'm going that deep, the full length of the tip. And these are the castings I made last week. If you missed that video, just go back and find the video and you'll see how they were created. Let's see if this is ready. Nope. As a matter of fact, if I make it, pinch it, it'll go in easier. There. And holding these pieces you hear, these castings, I try not to touch the detailed area, just the area that I'm going to end up going over quite a bit when I start adding the feathers to the legs, because your body heat will soften the clay, and then after you end up distorting the details because of your body heat and the pressure you're applying. Not quite there. Let me crank up the temp a little. I got it up to 250 now. Give it about 30 seconds, 40 seconds for it to reach that temp. Just try another fit. Okay, it's going in now. Let me take a measurement here. There, that'll work. The next thing I want to do, I want to make sure your front view, everything's nice and straight. Okay, that'll work there. I'm just going to give it a few minutes to solidify in there so I don't end up shifting it. In the other room, I had some of the clay in a crock pot, and I let the crock pot warm up the clay for maybe 30 minutes, and it got it somewhat soft. And now I'm going to be applying clay here to build it up to the same thickness as this side, and I'll be using calipers to constantly take measurements back and forth so I can achieve the same proportions, same ratios. So let's see. That. And I like to keep a wad of clay on my hand, and therefore allowing the temp of my body temperature to keep the clay soft. Otherwise, if you put the clay to the side, it gets a little too hard and you have to kind of warm it up again. I notice we have a weak link here, this solid piece to the new clay I'm putting, so I'm going to first build it up with this one, then come back with the waxer and heat this area up, kind of create like a weld, if you will, kind of fuse them together, so once it solidifies, it's a nice strong bond. So let's do that. I'm not too concerned with this whole area here, because as long as I get very close to the proportions and the look and feel of the leg, I'll be happy, since this whole area here, it's going to be overlap with the feathers, those hairs, they refer to as feathers on these horses' legs. Make sure this is straight. Okay, that looks good. Now I want to take this tool here, and where they meet, I want to create like a weld, fuse them together. Okay, that's pretty good. Right now what I want to do is more or less get the same proportion, same thickness on both legs. These two are the front legs. And once that's done, I'll go back and refer to the diagram here and start adding the individual muscles. I noticed some sculptors would actually take little worms, tubes, whatever you want to call them, and start applying them this way here and adding them. Yeah, you could do that. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I find this quicker here. We get the same end results, since then I will apply to this here and use my tools to create the lines that give the illusion of, well, separate muscles. follow the same process when I add the clay to the hind legs. On that, I'm not sure if I'll create a video for that portion since it's going to be the same process. When working, I normally listen to music, but when creating these videos and uploading them to YouTube, you get flagged for copyright infringement, and then after they want you to take down your darn video, or they remove the song. And removing the song, it removes the entire audio portion of it, so it doesn't help. Lately they have a particular tool where it allows you to delete the particular song in question, but it doesn't seem to work all the time. Okay, I'm going to pause it now. I'm going to run over and grab some more clay. And I'm only going to build it up to this point here. Now, this section may not be the same thickness as this here, because here we have the horse flexing his leg up, so therefore I assume since the muscles are contracting here, this is going to be actually wider. This clay reminds me of a product back in the 70s. I forget what it was called. It used to come in one of those little plastic containers. You would pull it out and when you would need it, and you would use it to capture impressions from the newspaper. I used to capture the impressions from the funnies. I wonder if you could do it here. Let me see. Do I have anything with ink? No. I probably need a newspaper. it should work, but it has the same feel to it. Feels like butter. And here I have this leg showing in the foreground, which is the correct leg. On my monitor, I have to flip it and see. Nope, wrong leg. Okay, now on my monitor, this front right leg is the leg in the foreground. So I'm going to be viewing that. I'm just amazed at how much weight these thin legs can support, especially when they're running. I'm going to place this over here so that I can look at certain areas. Somebody ought to come up with the model where you could actually flex it and everything, and as you flex it, the muscles will change and expand, contract. That'd be cool. Place you down here. First work on getting the correct thickness from this view. Once I'm done with that, I'll focus on the thickness on the straight-on shot. Okay, that's close enough there. Now let's work on the thickness on the upper area first. Okay, right here, right above this joint area. Let's see, which way do I want to, trying to figure out which way I want to build it up more. Let's build it up in the bottom first. Okay, that's correct thickness there. Let's move further up. Okay, about a ½ inch below this tip here, so right there. Okay, let's get the thickness about the midsection. About here. Okay, that's about right. So now what I'm going to do is compare them here and ensure they flow about the same as far as the line is flowing about the same, not too exaggerated, but okay, I'm constantly checking to make sure it's straight. Now, I'm going to get the thickness from here to here, a front eye view. Okay, that's about right dead center. Okay, and we're there already. Okay, the next one. Let's get the thickness of this the thinnest area right above this particular joint. Okay, that feels good there. Let me just add a little. Feels good. Now let's move further up and let's get the thickest part up here. And again, after I tweak it, it's going to vary because, like I said, the leg that's contracting should have a bigger muscle there as far as width. Plus or minus there. Let's see what we have. Okay, I need to add about a ½ inch somewhere. This is my right. Let's see, and And doing the research for this year was somewhat a little confusing, where you go to different diagrams and certain diagrams show certain muscles, and when you look from one diagram to the other, I said, okay, I see those muscles there, but they're shaped differently, and some show ligaments and some will not show ligaments, and the tendons and back and forth. So I'm going to go by what I'm going to viewing here. Then I'm going to go ahead and use my tools to blend it and give the illusion that if there was skin placed over it, that's how it would look. For me, I find this quicker sculpting this way, doing it in sections and then putting it together. For the times I've had to basically work straight off the armature, it's just a pain in the tush, and it's hard to get cramped necks because you gotta look underneath and awkward positions. This allows me to actually add more detail since I have more control. I'm able to flip the piece all over the place. So far for this clay being something softer than I normally use, it's holding up nicely since I like to handle my sculpture, moving it around, being a little rough with it. And so far, I don't see the piece getting distorted in any way. This morning when I started on this piece, I don't want to say it was cold here, it was in the high 60s, and the clay was very, very hard. And that's why I decided to use clay straight out of the crock pot. Let's see where I want the thickest part on this here. It's going to be the outer muscle. to my right, so the outer muscle here. I should have said outer muscles, since we're dealing with several muscles here. Okay, that's good. Now let's take the next measurement right above this main section. I guess I could refer to it, looks like a knee to me. Okay, when I have enough clay, I just use the calipers to push away the clay I don't need. Okay. Now let's get the thickness of these joints. Again, I would assume that when it's flexing, it's going to be a bigger section than the other side, that where he has the knee going straight down. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. Let me just make them look somewhat even, symmetrical here. I'm not sure why I'm whispering. I feel like I'm at a golf game. I'm not sure if you call them games, a golf meet. So now I'm going to work on, again, it's somewhat smooth, uniformed. Now let me check the bottom one. Okay. Just build it up a little. See, this is the intersection. This area won't be seen since it'll be attached to the body. And also when dealing with photographs, 2Ds, the foreground's always going to be bigger than the background. So that's part of the distortion. So you can't really take the measurements off something and transpose them onto something else. What I could have done is basically scale this section here is like down to the correct size of the one I'm using, then take the actual muscle shapes and transpose those over. But since you won't really be able to see the muscles, you'll just be able to get an illusion of what's really there. Most of it's gone because everything gets somewhat smoothed out. Everything gets somewhat smooth. You get a nice transition. If you show too much muscle, it doesn't really look realistic anymore. Let's see. This is my right side. I just want to make sure everything's nice and straight. Not that it has to be straight, because when you see a horse trotting, sometimes I don't want to say look all goofy, but their legs go in separate directions. But for this, I would assume that the Frisian people would probably appreciate it if everything was aligned correctly. And I'm thinking of somewhat cocking the neck or the head to give it a little more character, as opposed to having the piece, the horse looking straight on, straight. That didn't sound right, did it? The final pose, I think I'm going to have the horse, for the most part, lined up nice and straight, but he will have a slight tilt, the neck or the head being slightly cocked to give him more character. Okay, I'm done with these here. And what I like to do next is take the two and just get a feel for them. Make sure they feel symmetrical. That feels pretty good. Let's see, what do they look like? It's the left and the right. So it's going to be like this here. If I look them straight on, and the legs look straight, the joints look correct. And this one looks like he's kicking out a little there. Okay, next thing I want to do is take this tool here. But before I do that, this little piece of clay, I'm going to leave it on my left hand here. Keep it nice and warm in case I need to create one of these worms to make a muscle thicker or extend it. Let's see, what do we have here? I'm just going to follow my lines here, go for the really dark lines. That'll tell me that I need to dig into that part of the sculpture. So let's go here. And also on the legs, the back end is somewhat thinner than the front here. And that applies to this back here too. So for now, let's start making my marks. Here we want to dig in here. If you're a Frisian person, in other words, own a Frisian, know a lot about Frisians, feel free to send me a message. If you see something that's not correct, holler. I'll stop and see what I'm doing, and I'll try to tweak it to make sure it's true to the Frisian standard. Again, this Frisian will be more of the sports Frisian versus a classical look. And this doesn't have to be exact, since this was somebody's interpretation of what the anatomy looked like, or they got very close to it. Okay, next let's create these here, this somewhere in the middle. And this piece we have the tip here, and this goes up here somehow.
From out of area. Call from out of area.
But we got a ton of collars. What do you call those collars? Most of them are construction workers, contractors trying to sell you a service. And again, this doesn't have to be exact. You just want to get the illusion that those muscles are there. There. I'm going to flip it, and for this here I'm looking at the one on the monitor. Or those artists that know the anatomy of the horse or even humans very well, and they start applying layers and layers of muscle and then put everything together. That's pretty awesome. I never taken the time to go that route. You know, it does a pretty awesome horse, that gentleman from Montana, David Lemon. He did a Sagittarius. Oh, I fell in love with that piece there. After this, I'm thinking maybe since I had that other piece I didn't finish, maybe turn that into a Sagittarius. Since I was born in December, I'm a Sagittarius. So I figured, hey, I could do that. Put a body on it and put my head on it. I think my wife would freak, but it'd be a fun project. I was studying some of those models who make some briar, and I was studying different legs, different breeds, and my God, they're all over the place with those muscles. There goes my monitor. I'm gonna pause it right now. I'm gonna wait for this clay to get a little cooler. It's a little too soft, so I can't really do what I needed to do right now. So let's pause. Okay, let's try this again. Certain things you can do a little better when the clay is colder, harder. When the clay is cold, I like to go over with this ballpoint tool and just go back and forth and scribe and blend things together. Right now I'm having problems trying to figure out, based on the size of his legs, just how long the body should be. And I think I'm going to base that on the measurements I take of the actual horse. As you can see, what I'm doing with this tool here is making everything somewhat uniform, creating the tendons, the muscles I see here. Basically doing the same thing, whether you create a little worm, putting the worm in there, and or tube worm, whatever you want to call it, and shaping it. A lot of times you find yourself adding detail, then removing it, back and forth. My wife used to get upset. She goes, "Why did you spend all that time putting all the detail in just to get rid of it?" I guess it's good practice. Reminds me of a person that used to tell me, "You give it and take it away." Okay. A lot of my sculptures just end up in the clay stage. I just do it for practice, and then sometimes I recycle the clay. And after you excuse me. And after you recycle the clay, you regret it because, oh God, I should have kept that particular piece. Am I looking at there? It's like this. Now for this horse, the body needs to be longer than the legs. They want more of a rectangular shape to the horse, because it's a sports horse and agility and all whatever else they do. As if it was the classical horse, that's more of a square horse. So the body length will basically be equal as the height from the withers to the bottom to the ground. On my Facebook blog, I posted it there. I came across a video on some judge going over the Frisian, I think it was a stallion, and what they look for, and she did an outstanding job educating me on the conformation of this horse. I don't remember her name. I do remember, I think she was from the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. The only Frisian I've seen in person so far, from what I recall, was the one we saw in Ireland. I'm yet to see a Frisian here in person. I did attend one of the meetings for the Southern California Frisian Club, but that was held at a diner, I want to say, or deli, and there's no horses allowed there. So I wasn't able to see an actual horse. I've always wanted a real horse, but it's not feasible. They require a lot of care. I was surprised to learn that you have to change out their shoes every so many weeks. I forget, one site was talking about every 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, give or take. Well, it's a lot of shoes. And I did see some images on the internet where people neglect the horses and they have these hoofs just growing and really deformed. That was sad. So for this piece, I basically worked my piece around the size of the head for the most part. This when I first started this project, I was, for the most part, instructed or told that a lot of the proportions come from what the actual head size is. So it'll tell you from the withers to the crown, I think that's referred to the crown of the head, there should be two heads within there, boom boom, and from the withers to the base of the tail, or the top of the tail, there should be two heads there. So I said, okay, so let's take the measurement of the head and figure just how long does this horse have to be, things like that. Which was fine with me, because usually when I sculpt an animal or basically do anything, I spend most of my time on the head. Since that's the area where most people actually view first, or just view in general. And looking at the hoofs at first, I thought, God, are they going to be too big? But based on the research I did and making them a quarter scale, whatever the actual horse scales are, that's what it is, and I'm happy with it. It looks right to me. Let me show you the first ones I did. It would have been monster. And after, that's a good thing for the internet. After looking it up, I said, oh my God, they're huge. It would have been a monster draft horse. I converted one of the bedrooms into my studio, and since I'm working with clay there and there's carpet in that room, I had to cover the entire floor with those canvases you buy, painter's canvases, because if you get clay on your carpet, and there it goes, you end up ruining your carpet, especially when you're working like this here. And you get little pieces of clay on the floor. Eventually you pick those up with your feet, you track them throughout the house, and voila, before you know it, you just ruined your carpet. This is for the most part as far as I'm going to go with this piece here. As you can see, the proportions look correct. There's enough detail in there. So when I come back with my mineral spirits, it'll give me the look and feel I'm going after. And by me scribing this back and forth, it's comparable to when you use a rake to make your area you're working out somewhat uniform, get rid of all the dips, pivots, type of thing. So yeah, that's what I'm like when the clay is too soft. You get little dents. So now I gotta go back and repair. right, that should do it for today.